We'll move on to number 3, SECAM 16-098, 46 Meadow Road, Nichols Auto Parts. Deposition of material wood chips, map 85, block 69, lot 1, zone I2. This is eligible for decision. We need to check eligibility.
Chris, did you listen to the recording?
Yes, I did.
Painfully, yes.
Carl, did you listen to it?
I was at the original testimony, yeah.
Oh, right. You weren't here last week, were you?
No.
At the last meeting. So you listened to the recording from last meeting?
No.
Okay. Ellen?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so just Carl.
I got a question. Does the applicant meet all the requirements?
That's entirely for this commission to
I
decide.
know.
Yeah,
From your standpoint, does the applicant meet all the requirements of the current zoning regulations?
There are no technical defects with the regulation. Whether it meets the standards for your special exception is entirely a judgment call of the commission. There are no technical defects with the regulation. That's the best I can tell you as CEO. I'm not in a position to offer you advice on how to vote on the merits of the application. That is
Yeah, I
expressly.
understand.
but I
What I'm
think-
asking you, from the land use department's review of the applicant's information, all right? Everything is in order with the exception of the fact that we have to make a judgment.
Well, DTC asked for certain additional information. They provided certain additional information. I don't know whether that's good enough or not. I can say
And that
DTC.
additional information, why didn't you require it? You didn't think it was necessary?
No, we sent it out to our engineering consultant for an engineering review, and the engineer said, I don't have enough information on certain things, and I don't think the commission does either. The commission should ask for more, and as a result, the applicant sent in more. I'm not an engineer. I wouldn't know enough to ask certain questions. There was an
But the
issue about.
engineer should have known what you needed.
Well, the applicant's engineer submitted what they thought they needed.
Right.
Our engineer reviewed it and said they thought they needed
And
more.
I'm saying our engineer should have known what was necessary.
Yes,
Instead of saying, I need more information. What information?
if you recall, the applicant's engineer provided additional information regarding the trucks that come in and out and how they load and unload. I don't have the memo in front of me, but there were certain specific requests made from our engineer to the applicant's engineer. The applicant's engineer responded by providing a memo with additional information.
Okay.
Here, we open the file here.
Eric, can I just interject for
Go
a
ahead.
second? I really don't want to start, if this is about procedurally, whether we should be hearing it or not in the first place, then the discussion can continue, but if, I don't want to start getting into the actual deliberation and the specifics.
Okay.
Okay?
But my point is, the deliberation should be determined by the facts and not by personal opinions.
I don't think anyone's contesting that. You were asking.
My comment is, I see it all the time sitting here.
I don't think you're actually seated on the application. So I must.
So, at this point, Mr. Neri, I'm going to ask you to recuse yourself.
Okay?
Well,
I can't make you, but
it's not seated.
Not safe.
I'm not cheating. So.
I still think he shouldn't have recused himself from the
Would you-
table.
He doesn't need to recuse himself from the table. He can't speak towards the application. He doesn't need to leave, he just can't speak towards
Okay.
the application.
So everybody understands?
Yeah, I'm not leaving. I'll stay right here.
All right. So, I asked Julie and Eric to come up with possible conditions of approval, that if somebody makes a motion to approve, they would have at least these conditions of approval or whatever comes from the table. And I wanted to make sure that the conditions of approval were something that we legally could do. So I am in no way saying that you would need to use these or use them or not use them, but they are a couple things that Julie and Aaron put together as minimums.
Do we also have, may I ask a question of the chair?
Sure.
Do we also have an equivalent motion to deny?
This is not a motion.
These are just conditions if you,
Conditions that you would put on
On a motion to approve.
On an approval, okay.
I haven't given any conditions on motion to deny because obviously motion to deny doesn't have
I just
conditions.
want a clarification.
That would be awkward if you tried to condition deny.
Well, there are reasons for
Yes,
it,
there's
not
reasons.
conditions.
Reason, I have not come up with motions on this one because again, I was not at the public hearing, so it's difficult.
This may not be used. If somebody doesn't make a motion to approve, these are some conditions they could put in their motion if they so choose. So with that, do I have a motion to approve or deny this application?
I'd like to make a motion to deny SECAM 16-098 Meadow Road, Nichols Auto Parts, based on the facts from the Planning and Zoning Commission. First of all, the applicant did not demonstrate good faith, according to the CEO, regarding storage of wood chips over an extended period of time when he was ordered to cease and desist. As we heard from
Wait, you're getting into deliberation. What's your motion?
the motion,
Motion to deny. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? No. Sorry, now you know.
sorry. As I was saying, the applicant has not demonstrated good faith in terms of ceasing and desisting storage of wood chips over an extended period of time. Planning and Zoning Commission also heard public testimony regarding the traffic safety along the road. The capacity on the road is not reasonable for that type of use. Noise issues related to the expanded use, that the current applicant was operating hours beyond what was permitted, and that there's concerns for the well water quality should that use be continued, the unpermitted use be continued. Under Section 9, special exceptions may be permitted for specified zones under certain conditions. 9.2.3 does not fall under. 23.4.2 with the odors, gases, and fumes. Section
Sorry, 23.2.4.2,
23.4.2. Sorry. Section 27.3.1. And within the town plan of conservation development, we specifically call out the Coastal Management Act Code Management Principle number 4. Does not comply with that. And we also have within our action items to identify and address areas of residential, commercial, industrial use which are conflicting in the East End and deal with them. This would not actually deal with those issues. So based upon those findings, the Planning and Zoning Commission hereby denies application SECAM 16-098 as of October 2016.
Any other discussion?
I mean, in light of everything that Christine just mentioned, it was also the issue that he knew what he was doing was wrong. I mean, he knew that when he was doing it, he was in violation. Yet he still did it. Yet when Eric went to him and had discussion with him as far as what he was going to need to do to remedy that problem, according to testimony, it took multiple times for him to kind of get back to Eric and realize what he needed to do in order to make it right. In light of that, you know, once he knew he was in violation, he continued to do it. I mean, he didn't stop doing that once he realized he was in violation of that. You know, in good faith to the town, in good faith to what we're trying to work through here, and to have a working relationship with the town that may benefit him down the road, to know that you're doing something wrong, yet still do it, you know, in spite of being asked to submit an application, is also an issue.
Anybody else?
So he was given a cease and desist there?
He was not given, he was given a warning of violation.
Warning.
We didn't get all the way up to cease and desist. We did give him two separate notices of violation, the warning and the notice of violation. He did come in, he promised me an application, the application took a lot of arm twisting to get out of him. So, again, it did eventually happen, it just took a lot of effort on my part to get him in the room.
And then my motion to remove the cease and desist and then substitute with violations, two separate violations, please.
Anybody else?
I'll tell you where I struggle with this one. I think the use is appropriate for the zone. I think the zoning regulations allow for that use. And I think the testimony we heard really centers around everything else he's doing, trucks, you know. And I think that you know, I question whether this permission should be used to be punitive. Do we deny an application because traffic is moving at speeds that are not appropriate for the neighborhood, or should the police be called to deal with that? Certainly there was a lot of testimony of alleged issues that should be dealt with. What's the right means to do that with? Is it to not deny the application, or is it to engage the appropriate authorities having jurisdiction with those issues? And that's kind of where I struggle with this one. Do we deny it as a punitive measure, or are we denying it as an inappropriate use for the zone?
It is a special exception use, and we have a lot of latitude for the grounds to deny that. My feeling is that I agree with the motion, and I agree largely because he's looking for something, and yet he's not been willing to bend to any of the concerns that the public has expressed regarding the site, whether it's the delivery period or whether it's the trucks that are used to enclose the western side of the property. I mean, it's just a flagrant, signal or sign to the community that he doesn't care. And we are looking at a residential neighborhood that has probably substantially more assessed value than an expanded, whatever it is, facility there. And, I don't think we should grant permits, particularly special exceptions, in cases where there's just a history of violations and non-compliance with the even intent of our regulations.
What's the history, other than this one issue? Is there other items that we're not aware of?
I'd just like to bring something up before we go any further. Many things are being said right now that are possibly not part of this application. As I reminded the public many times, this is about the wood chip use. This is not a residential neighborhood, this is an industrial zone, starting with that. Just want to remind everybody what we're actually talking about, that trucks are allowed on those roads. Trucks will still be allowed on those roads. Christina, I just want to ask you to clarify 27.3-1 and how it applies here.
Non-conforming use is being large and expanding. It's a non-conforming use in that area.
Actually, it's a conforming use in the area, just not, it doesn't have
Current
much.
use.
The uses are all within the zoning regulations. They never received a special exception for them because they predate the regulations. It's not a non-conforming use, it's it doesn't have a permit, which is different than being non-conforming.
But in expanding them to, or extending the uses within that
Yeah,
that
but
regulation falls to.
if this were in a residential zone, and if we're expanding, it would be the expansion of a non-conforming use. But because it's in an industrial zone, all that we're doing is we are expanding a use that is permitted in the zone, which is why they're here for the special exception. They don't need to permit the original use, but they do need to permit the new use. But it's not, the original use is not non-conforming in the sense that it couldn't be allowed in the zone. It's non-conforming in the sense that it never needed a permit. So it's not a non-conforming use in the sense that you couldn't do it there absent it being pre-existing. It's non-conforming in the sense that they never had to get a permit because it was there before the obligation for a permit came into place.
And then regarding that the current structures and extending the current structures on the property, does that directly relate to non-conforming or just specifically fall under expanding a use on the property and expanding the structures?
If you're expanding a use or a structure that's non-conforming, it would be because in the case of a structure, the structure was too close to setbacks or over bulk requirements or whatever else. Doesn't seem to be the case here. This really falls into the issue of the use there predates zoning, so it never received a permit. It's being expanded, but the expansion of the use is obtaining the permit that it needs under your regulations. So the original use is not illegal in that zone. It's allowed in the zone. It just doesn't. They never got a permit for it because they predate the need for one. The new use is permitted in the zone. It's an industrial zone. This is an industrial use. So I don't think the issue of nonconformity is really at the heart of what we're doing here. Whether this is a good use for this location is a different issue. It may be a residential neighborhood, as you said, in an industrial zone, as Gary has said. It can be both. But nonconformity is sort of a different issue. In fact, the residences are non-conforming for the zone, not this use. So I'm not sure 2731 is really at the heart of what we're doing here.
Can I ask you then, specifically when you go back to trucks on the road, if you're expanding a use in an area and the road structure cannot handle the trucks, the width of the road as specified by the public is problematic. You can't get a single car and a truck down the road at the same time without running over the boxes and going inside. Is that relevant if the use is being expanded?
I will give you a two-part answer. One of which is that you can't deny something simply because the road is in poor condition. You can, to the extent that they're increasing traffic on the road, require improvements to the road that are equivalent to the amount of additional traffic that they're proposing. So, sort of as a parallel, we have the situation with the propane site, where testimony was that the trucks could not make the turn from Route 1 onto Knollwood without crossing into the other lane. And then the question was, okay, if you're going to vote in favor, can we impose conditions that would require them to make improvements? And the applicant came back and said they did not have any ability to make those sorts of improvements. And that is the reason that the judge decided that your decision to deny the application was appropriate. The road was not improved to allow that sort of use, and therefore the use was unsafe. If you believe that there will be unsafe traffic here, you are allowed to make it a condition of approval, or you can deny the application, but simply saying that the road is inadequate for the current use, the courts have pretty much held that because it's zoned industrially, the town has already made a determination that the road is appropriate for that use. So if we're just talking about the marginal additional use, you can either say that it shouldn't go on the road, or you can propose it as a condition of approval. But the road is the road. I mean, at this point, the town's failure to maintain the road is not necessarily the applicant's responsibility. So it's a very long-winded answer, but there's sort of a lot of pieces that are at work in there.
Okay, just some housekeeping here. Let the record show that reseat him for Tim Guerrera. Okay. And Eddie's seated. In addition, Christine, I just want to make sure we have this right and that we're making the decision based on what we're supposed to make the decision about. 23.4.2, odors and gases. Can you explain that one?
No offensive odors, noxious, toxic, corrosive fumes, or gases shall be emitted to the air. So we've heard testimony from certain people in the public that live in the residential area, not zone, residential area, that there's smells being emitted from those switches, and it's affecting their breathing, etc.
One of the problems I have with this regulation is it's so ambiguous. No offensive odors, so I find the smell of cedar very nice, and you might find it very noxious. So you're saying it's the actual smell of the wood chips?
I'm referring back to the testimony from the public.
Just want to make sure you're not talking about gasoline. Anybody else have anything?
I would just ask Eric, the general public safety issue would still apply.
Yes,
Yeah.
certainly, if you believe that this additional amount of truck traffic would be unsafe, that is something that can go into consideration.
Okay.
Okay?
Any other discussion?
Call the question.
Okay.
Just some housekeeping. So Christine, would you remove the 27.3.1 from your,
I would.
okay.
Can you read the motion to us, please?
Okay. Christine moved to deny the application based on that the applicant did not demonstrate good faith to the two notices of violation, the warning and notice of violation based on traffic safety, noise, hours of operation beyond what is permitted, low water quality, and she cited sections 9.2.3, 23.4.2, the Coastal Management Act, principle number 4, and the Plan of Conservation and Development.
You could say action items from the plan of conservation.
Okay, with a show of hands, who's in favor of the motion to deny? Christine, Chris, Alan, Mary Ellen. And at the last minute, Eddie Alvarino. Okay, everybody opposed to the motion to deny? Adam? Abstaining? Drew? Okay, motion carries. Application is denied. You have something to say?
I have something to say. I timed an individual here, right? Spent 40% of the time tonight spent by that one individual talking about dragging stuff out. Out of an hour's meeting, spent 10, 20, 25 minutes talking about everything under the sun. It's ridiculous. Everybody should be limited to a couple of minutes. Get your point across and end it. Now, as far as the vote that you took tonight on the junkyard, basically that was a political decision, okay, by people here trying to pacify people that came to the audience, complaining about the fact this guy has a non-conforming use because they can't get him, they want to get at him because he has that use. And so they're denying the use of putting the wood chip in. It's completely ridiculous that somebody would vote that down when it's so minute. And the reason they're arguing about everything is because they don't want the junkyard there and they can't do anything about it. We're starting to get too political here. We're supposed to be here as citizens working to improve the town and work with the people that are here. we're forcing business people not to come into town. Why would they want to deal with this? That's my opinion.
Can I give my opinions, Chairman?
This is the part where everybody gets to talk first.
Okay.
However, we're going to make sure that we're not personally talking to
Nope.
anybody else first.
Presented
It's not
first.
me, and we're respectful.
I had no objections to the junkyard. I went down myself, did everything. My objection to the wood chips was from DEEP. And I don't know if you guys know, but I am in DEEP. And so I had read all the books, I did all my homework, I was at the wetlands. That gave me my vote on the wood chips. That was my personal opinion. I had nothing against them doing business. It was with the 100-year plan, Carol Zemansky, everything like that. That's,
Let me answer that for you. The person that made that decision,
Hold on.
that wrote that letter,
Hold
okay?
on a second, Carl. Chris?
I mean, as far as a political move, I mean, I think for one time that I've seen since we've been here, we've kind of worked together as a committee instead of against the committee.
yeah.
The people that voted, Christine voted in favor, I seconded based upon it's a special exception needed for this use. So that's something that you look at, whether or not it's something that's needed in that area, in our town. And those are the decisions that we as a committee should be basing them on. A political decision is more so the fact that if everybody's sticking with their own party and working with their own party and voting in favor or voting against things. It's refreshing to see that there was one time here where we did work together as a committee amongst each other and with each other and dealt with something in our town where we heard from people that had oppositions. That is an important part of this, okay? There's public hearings for a reason. The reason that we have public hearings is so that people can come here and they can speak on their behalf. Because we, as a committee, a lot of times also sit here and say, well, this person does this and that person does that. We don't know what anybody else does. The only way that we know as a town and as a committee is that when people come in front of us and speak in front of us and tell their opinions. And we have to make a decision based upon our own decisions. When I leave the room, I'm happy with the decision that I made based upon something that I looked at the facts, we looked at what happened, and we worked together as a committee, and we listened. Yes, you have to listen to the people that speak. Is that ultimately our final decision? No, not necessarily. There are regulations, but this also is a special exception. So a lot of that plays into the part of the decisions that we make as a committee.
You know that DEP took no exception to the wood chips. They had no problem with that. They just didn't like the existing.
Burn.
Where they were in the burn.
They took no exception to the wood chips.
Just for the point of record, DEP had no problem with the wood chips. Really?
They said they wanted the mafia blocks.
No.
There's
They
nothing.
gave conditions.
We're on the second one.
The thing I'm concerned about is many of the things I heard, all of us say, were things that I think we should have been making decisions about. And, and one of the reasons I bring these up is that if somebody does appeal, some of these things seem pretty significant. Keep in mind, they are now, if they wanted to, they could expand into those areas their scrap business with nobody, and we can't do a thing about it.
Mr. Chairman.
So when I start hearing things, the one person I heard in public was Matt Kennedy. And I was surprised that not a single person brought him up. Because at the end of the day, he told everybody, we still have to live next to this person. That's the whole reason I had these made up, was because his testimony talked about, if you do approve, there should be these conditions on them. 30 days for removal. That helps with odors. I'm very concerned about some of the things we make our decisions on. I'm not saying that we shouldn't have denied it, but some of the reasons given from time to time. For instance, one of them, the major one we used tonight, was that he was, told to stop that operation. We do that all the time. All the time. We have applicants right now doing things that they are not supposed to be doing that we are not enforcing because we're waiting, and we've given them this, whatever you want to call it, grace period, right now. And on the record, as part of our testimony, we denied them because, and it was probably the single biggest reason I heard, was because they kept doing what they weren't doing. Those are my only concerns, whether we're for it or against it, just like I do with the public, we need to be only looking at the use of wood chips. Is it permitted in that area?
Mr. Chairman, one thing, you know, we should never get into a situation where the facts that are brought before us meets all the regulations, and we're trying to get back at him to a different avenue, okay? Because what's going to happen is, he's going to go to the Board of Appeals, and he's going to win. We're going to look foolish. For exactly some of the things that you said and Adam said, you can't deny the guy just because he made a mistake and didn't come in and get a permit. We do it every day. Ask the zoning enforcement officer. That's part of his job, to work it out so you don't end up in court, costing the town thousands of dollars in legal fees. It's ridiculous. And we have some people on here, all they care about is stopping progress.
No, I'm not sure I agree with that, but, you know,
But
I'm allowing this conversation just because as we get further, and one of the reasons I handed out that paper is that, you know, we're all volunteers, we're labor. We need to get it right, including myself, every time. And getting it right isn't about whether we vote yes or no. It's about the reasons we vote yes or no. Christine?
So with the special exception, I didn't have to cite all those regulations specifically. I can specifically cite the town plan conservation development, and within there is 2 items specific to that application. And this is within the special exception. We can refer back to town plan conservation to back up any decision that's been made to approve or deny. Coastal area management plans and
That's a great reason. No, I didn't mention that. That is exactly something, a reason you would deny something, but some of the other stuff was concerned from everyone.
I'm gonna be honest, I had no other problem than the coastal management, but I said Pete, with the wood chips. That was all I had a problem.
All right, we're gonna move on.
With the condition to fix the berm.
And she said in the letters that not to remove or touch anything without going forth for a plan.
Right, and that could
Did
have
he
been,
ever,
but that could have been a condition.
but I'm just saying, but was there, did they ever reach out for that?
At
I'm
the
just
end of the
saying.
day, we all have to vote the way we have to vote. We want to make sure that we're voting for the reasons
That's why I voted.
that we're supposed to vote for. Any other discussion that has nothing to do with wood chips?
And then do it with chips.
With that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion there.
Second? Adam? All in favor, please signify by raising your hand. That's how you, yeah. Thank you. Yeah, the meeting ended at